it's just a lot of crazy fibs and lies. You know, it's just a situation where, you know, we won 29 games last year, and for us as a basketball organization, we want to get better. But Cuz is our best player, we know that. We want him committed and dedicated to being in Sacramento and playing and leading us to the first playoffs in Sacramento in 6, 7, 8, 9 years.
You are not interested in trading DeMarcus Cousins?
Yeah, my interest right now is commitment, trust, and building a team that's excited about being in Sacramento, excited and committed to being a good basketball team and representing the city of Sacramento.
All right, George, I'll give this to you first. How much longer will Cousins be with the Kings?
Man, look, this is tough because I really like George Karl. Yeah. He was one of our colleagues here. But he didn't answer that second question. He did the sidestep right there.
He gave us the Matrix.
Yeah. He looked like he was like Neo. The bullets were coming. He was like, whoa.
It looked like he was at a golf outing. He should have been on Dancing with the Stars because he was just soft-toed now. Woohoo!
The Sacramento Kings are one of the most dysfunctional franchises, not only in the NBA, but in all of sports right now. You've got an owner who has done and said a lot of crazy things, okay? He said that he'd be okay with his team playing 4-on-5 on defense so they can get out on the break earlier. I mean, that's just nonsense right there. And here's the thing. He loves DeMarcus Cousins. Okay, I get it. The owner and the star players should get along really well. So then why did he fire the coach in Mike Malone that got along with DeMarcus Cousins when they were actually playing pretty well under Mike Malone? And then he brings in George Karl, who at the time, if we recall, there were a lot of reports like, ooh, we don't know if that's going to work. You know, both sides are kind of like, they don't fit with what each other wants to do. And then, of course, we have the actual friction between the two. None of this should be a surprise, okay? I covered a game of theirs. They were in Miami, and they were down 13, 14 points in the fourth quarter, and they lost the game. I went into the locker room with our own Tom Haberstroh, and one of the beat writers for Sacramento asked DeMarcus, hey, so, you know, what happened there at the end of the game? You guys blew the lead, blah, blah, blah. And DeMarcus, and I'm paraphrasing, said something to the effect of, that the offense makes him more predictable. That he started by saying that, look, we're all working. It's only been a couple of weeks. You know, we'll try to get it together. But then he went on to say that it makes it more predictable, easier to defend at times. And right there, I was like, oh. I mean, it's only been a couple of weeks. I mean, you play basketball, okay? Like, you're the athlete here. Yeah. You know, you say that, like, that raises an eyebrow.
It definitely does. No, absolutely. And I'll tell you this as an athlete, if you have even an inkling of an idea that your coach doesn't want you there, which, by the way, George Karl answered that second question, sounds like
pretty clearly.
He's not so sure.
Yeah.
Your level of investment, your level of trust is not going to be anywhere it needs to be the leader of that team. So in my opinion, something's got to happen. Someone's got to go. And DeMarcus Cousins, I mean, I know there's talks about him going to the Lakers. That would be a great place for him because let's be real. He needs a little attitude adjustment. He needs a pro, a veteran, like maybe a Kobe Bryant that can bring him along, that can show him how it's done, that will, when he starts to pout, he will say, be quiet, sit down, I'm running this, you're not going to lose games for us, and we're moving along. So, yes, I think that relationship from the cryptic tweet we saw.
Snake in the grass.
Snake in the grass.
Do we have the tweet? Can we put that thing up on the screen? That was fantastic.
That was good.
It was well done on his part. But he's letting us know that he is not comfortable. He feels like there's some people that don't have his back. Yeah. And he's on the lookout for sure.
This is what I don't understand. You have the owner who loves the player and the coach saying this guy, he's our leading scorer. But, you know, I only want people that want to be here. So then Cousins puts that tweet out, which he didn't type any words. Cool. You telling me that these two guys can't get on the phone and talk to one another? You're airing this out here? The only person that I think looks bad in this is George Karl.
No, see, I think the owner looks bad. The owner knew that George Karl and DeMarcus were going to be a bad fit from the get-go. Everybody on God's green earth was telling him that.
Yeah. But for George Karl to not come out and go, listen, we're putting the best team on the floor that's available, and whatever pieces I get, I'm going to coach them up and make this the best team that's available to me. At least in saying that, he's throwing a little bit of padding between him and DeMarcus. You know what I mean? Just a little bit out there. But for him to just dance around that question and do the
well, and let's be honest, DeMarcus has shown some emotional immaturity. So where a player that had a little more may be able to maybe pick up the phone and call coach and say, well, DeMarcus has a way of, you know, really helping people understand how he feels, and it's not always the best way. He's a young star. I think he'll he'll grow. I think he'll mature. But at this point, it's a relationship that, at this point in DeMarcus' career, I don't think can be mended.
With
So
the
it's
cap
not worth
space
the
that
trouble, is what you're saying.
No.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to go. She's right. LaChina's right. Somebody's got to go. Now, here's the thing. Are you going to pay another coach to go away?
And with the cap space that they have, you can bring in that mature guy that's going to help.
Who's going to want to play in Sacramento?
Well, that's
knowing that there's a toxic situation.
why you got to throw that into the mix.
And then what are they going to do?
Right. It's about the toxic situation more than anything else.
What are they going to do about that relationship between George Karl and DeMarcus Cousins?
Well,
Nothing.
What's easier to get? Is it easier to get someone with the talents that DeMarcus Cousins has, or a coach? Because in my opinion, George Karl's the easier replaced one. You're not going to get a guy like DeMarcus Cousins where you can just pick him out whenever you want to. George Karl, at his age, where am I going to get an NBA coach? Well, according to the Cleveland Cavaliers, we can pick one up anyway. Let's just go to Walmart. Where's Target?
Yeah, but if you do make a coaching change, I still think you need that vet to come in with
Absolutely.
to really help DeMarcus. And I mean, because we don't want to be doing this his entire career.
Yeah, he needs an alpha dog. Okay, and we discussed this before the show. Like I referenced Rasheed Wallace. Rasheed Wallace was a guy when he was in Portland. They relied upon him in a lot of ways. And then when he went to Detroit, and he had Chauncey Billups, and he had Rip Hamilton, and Ben Wallace, and that group, and Larry Brown. And then they got him to play as well as he's ever played in a team setting. And I think maybe that's what DeMarcus needs, is whether it's a coach or another player or both that fits what works for him and brings the best out of him. I think that's what's necessary.
And he is that good. He is that good to make the necessary changes around him to allow him to have consistency and be the star that he is. He's worth it to me.
That's why George Karl messed up, because he could have put himself in a position to go, I'm working with what I have, and I'm going to make this really good. And by not doing that,
he put himself on the
you put a wedge in between the guy who's scoring the most points for you.
But you know what? If he's on the chopping block and he's going to get paid $4 million a year for the next couple of years not to work,
he might have done that on purpose.
Yeah.
That's all.
Hey.
So what do we think? Does Cousins last the year? Does he make it through the season?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
So you think they're firing George Karl?
If anybody's going to go, it's going to be George Karl. Again, what's the easier replaceable part of this story? George Karl's the one that's replaceable. This guy who put up the most points for your team, you're going to start all over? All right, George, you're right. I love this dude who's doing everything for our team, and it's been fantastic, and we're going to build something around him. But you're right. Take him out.
But maybe it is best for everyone that he goes somewhere else. Better for DeMarcus, better for the franchise.
Better for George Karl.
Well, I'm saying we've seen guys go to another spot and be able to flourish, and then the other team, at times, maybe they could find a way to flourish themselves too. Maybe it's time for a split. And I'm not saying it's DeMarcus' fault. I'm just saying it may be in his best interest to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and some of those trade rumors, Julius Randle, I mean, he's going to be a different type of player in emotional maturity, leadership-wise, all of that, because he's young, more moldable than DeMarcus Cousins.
Right, and you would get the number 2 pick, too. And you could take Jahlil Okafor. You could start there with another center. I mean, I think that there are ways around that, potentially, for both teams for it to work.
Well, if he were to be traded, he'd be the 6th player in NBA history to average at least 24 points and 12 rebounds per game and play for a different team the next season. So, Jameis Winston, meanwhile, is about to begin his first NFL season. So is it possible the number 1 pick could throw more interceptions than TDs this season? We're playing the odds after the break. Well, 2 sources told Benjamin Albright of 94.1 FM in Denver that the Broncos tried to trade Peyton Manning to the Texans sometime before the Denver quarterback signed his restructured deal with the team on March 4th. This report was quickly denied on Twitter by a Broncos team spokesman, saying the speculation is false and the report is inaccurate. Michael, are you buying the denial?
Completely? No. Only because it's a little bit ironic that as soon as this call may or may not have been made, Peyton's deal was restructured and there was a no trade clause put into there. Now it's the Texans. They don't have a quarterback, so they're probably going to call anybody.
Sure.
Now the Broncos could have just not even taken a call, because if you think about it, the Texans are calling and, hey, Denver, we want to ask you a little bit about Peyton Manning, and we were wondering if you, hello? Did we lose the connection? They're not calling. So in that sense, Denver just probably didn't even think about the idea. No, absolutely not. But could it have happened and there's been some talks? I would say there's a little smoke there. Maybe not fire, but a little bit of smoke.
Sure.
I agree with Michael. I think that teams have discussions in general. Right? We're seeing it right now play out in the NBA with Dwayne Wade, right? He's been a guy who's been a star there forever, and there's been some stuff that's been leaked about contracts and him not being happy and them not being happy with where they want him to come in at. So this doesn't surprise me at all. Teams have these discussions, and there was a time when Gary Kubiak was named the coach that people were wondering, is Payton going to be the right fit? He likes to run the naked boot a lot, and that means Payton's going to have to get out of the pocket and run out of his comfort zone. So there were a lot of questions certainly about that. There were questions as to whether John Elway wanted to move on from Peyton Manning. So all that stuff, people forget that was just a few months ago. So of course I buy the story that they at least discussed it. And what are they going to do? Are they not going to deny it? They're supposed to deny it in that situation, because I'm guaranteeing that Peyton wasn't a part of that particular process.
Yeah, I think you don't discuss Peyton Manning at all. That's my take on it. I believe the Denver Broncos. I mean, this is Peyton Manning. You off the top, you say, listen, we can't talk about him. I'll give you anything else you want, but not Peyton Manning. Why would they have that discussion? I don't understand. Denver is in a lose-lose situation there. Why would you give up Peyton Manning?
Because you have to listen to everything that people are going to offer.
But if you already
Even
know,
when it comes to Peyton Manning, hey, what are you throwing on the table?
Yeah, what does it hurt to listen?
Hey, exactly. Just because I go to a steak restaurant doesn't mean I'm going to get steak. I might have chicken, but show me the prime. What does the prime rib look like? Right. Let me see what the ribeye is. Show me a little. Okay, I'm not going to do it, but thank you for showing me.
Maybe you go surfing.
Now the next time. Now the next time is, you know what? I'm gonna have some chicken. Look at that ribeye. You know what? Yeah, I will take the ribeye. Why not? That's okay, and it's okay to do
I think teams discuss that internally. I do think teams discuss all that stuff.
And that's why they have to deny it, because Peyton wasn't involved. That's why they have to deny it.
But you would never want that to get back to Peyton Manning. That's my whole thing.
Too late.
And Houston has no reason to hide that. So now it gets back to your quarterback, and what does that do? So I don't even think you talk about it. You take him off the table right away, which I believe they did. I don't believe in it at all. And why now?
Well,
why
Peyton understands that.
Because look at his age. Look at his age, and look at his arm strength continues to deteriorate. He's up in age. He had the problems with the quad that affected his already arm strength that's not great at this stage of his career. So you look at a guy, you think, okay, is his body deteriorating? What can we get for him? I think those are internal discussions that any team would have with an aging superstar like him, even though he's still performing at a pretty high level.
Well, and if I'm Peyton Manning and I don't hear anyone talking about anything after everything they said was wrong with me before, that makes me more nervous. Now, how come nobody talking about trading me? What's the deal? What's going on? Like, that means that something's going on behind my back.
Sure. Well, to your point, George, he's 39 now. How much does Peyton really have left in the tank?
Maybe another year or two.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're looking at. So if you're the Broncos, you're weighing it out, seeing, okay, what could we get for him? Is it worth it potentially to move him? What would the backlash be? All that stuff is factored in. Again, those are discussions that are had internally that usually don't include the player, especially in that sport. Football is the most cutthroat of all the sports.
Yeah.
Which is why he had the no trade clause put in when he
After
did his
the fact.
restructured deal.
And I agree with you, another year or so, but gosh, it's hard for me to bet against Peyton Manning, because
I hear you.
Just when you think he's ran out of gas, he comes up with a punch.
Yep, proves you wrong.
It's hard for me.
Well, meanwhile, Rob Gronkowski says he hasn't spent a cent of his contract with the Patriots. We'll talk Gronk as part of our NFL Quick Takes when we come back.
Yeah.